Hello and welcome back, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different with my hiking sticks. It's something that I do on a kind of not so regular basis as my other formats of sticks that I produce. Today I'm going to be doing what we term as one of our vintage collections. Now that is, the aim is to produce a new stick obviously for the customer, but it has a kind of retro vintage look to it, and I'll show you how I achieve that. But in essence I won't be using any boiled linseed oil as my sealing coat and what I use to lubricate the copper ferrule as it goes over the wood. That in essence will be all done by the stain, which I will be using to achieve the distressed look, to give it that look of years and that kind of vintage look and feel. So here's the stick in question. It's actually shaped and sanded, and I've got it to the finish I want. There's a few processing marks in it which adds that kind of look of years, and should we say it's been around the block, or should I say it's been around the footpaths. So in this kind of format of stick that I'm doing, it really isn't too big an issue if you have a few processing marks from woodworking the actual stick itself to get to this point. I do have to put one of my copper ferrules on, which I do have ready. It's been shall we say drilled, countersunk, and then stamped out to produce the hole, and on top of that it's actually been reamed out to allow it to slide over the wood. The lubrication and the actual treatment of the actual tip will be the stain itself. I'll give this a very heavy coat of stain in underneath, so where the ferrule sits on top of the actual plug, that will be heavily stained, this bit here, to provide protection against water ingress and you know, the wear of actual being out on the trail. But in all intents and purposes, this is now ready to start the process. But before I can go any further, I've got to get this onto that. Right, I've got some dark mahogany stain there. Now, dark mahogany stain does give like a very, should we say, it gives it that look of age. But the one thing you can do with that is gently apply it, and you can build up layers of darkness where you want. But in this case I'm using a rag instead of a brush, quite simply because I find it gives it that better effect of age rather than using a brush. If you're using a brush like this and you're stroking it on, you do tend to leave a finish of kind of like it's been purposely done. Using a rag, you can give it that look of distressed and, shall we say, sun and weather damaged kind of conditions that the stick has been in or put through. So it gives you that vintage retro look in a better kind of roundabout way. Right, I've got a thick rubber pad which I'm going to place on the floor, because obviously putting the ferrule on, I don't want to damage the crown on top of the handle. So I've just placed that down there. I've got my stick there, and I'm just going to get my rag, which is heavily soaked here by the way, and I'm just giving this a big coat, as you can see, going up through like this. And I'm making sure I'm really letting this soak in the wood here. And I'm not worried about trying to make this look old at the moment, because this is the bit I really want to get a good soaking of stain, because it's going to be underneath the ferrule. I have the ferrule here, and I'm just putting some inside the ferrule, because obviously it helps it glide over the actual wood. because like I said, I usually rely on boiled linseed oil for that particular task in hand. Put that back in a moment. In the absence of gloves, I am using a dog poo bag on my hand, if you were wondering. Just get the ferrule, kind of work it on there. Right, I've got it to a point, it won't go no further. Just gonna tap it around so I can't gain no more downward force. And at this point you can see I'm just beginning to fur that wood up. So what I'll have to do is get a hacksaw and just use the backward force to take those filings off. If you leave them there, what will happen is you will dig into the wood further. So you will have to stop with the ferrule every now and again to allow yourself that opportunity to take off those fraction bits of actual wood, so it doesn't turn into a big split. Right. Get this one, make sure I'm fully on the pad because I do not want to damage the handle. See round 2. Bit more. That's right to the tip. So now, if I get this dog poo bag off, I now trim this edge up. And then I just work my way around again. Always do it on the back side of the hacksaw blade. The reason I'm not using a woodworking blade is quite simple, because I'm going up against copper here. If you use a woodworking blade, you will knacker the teeth on it. And as you can see, any splinters are coming off. Work your way, only the back stroke, like I said. If you saw like that, you will start to eat into the wood and damage it. There. Just take the final bits off. Now I have the ferrule on, I can now reapply some more actual stain just to finish that off. Yet again, trusty dog poo bag. Like I said, usually got gloves here. From here, I'm just staining that bottom piece there. All that bit that I cut into. And I'm really giving this bottom piece, this bottom ½ an inch, a good heavy staining, as you can see there. Bit more on the top. Just take the bit off the copper. And I'm ready now to start staining the actual shaft. So as you can see, I've got that copper ferrule on. I can clean up any residue later on, but I just want to get it stained at the moment. And you can see it's sucked in the actual stain quite a bit there. And it's already got a little bit of a distressed mark along the rings of the wood there and the fibres. So I'm going to carry on staining a minute, and we'll see what effect we actually get. Now, I'm very quickly just wiping over here. This is kind of me trying not to get too much actually on the stick. Just going over it and just gently wiping it along. And the rag leaves more in some areas than in others, which is the effect you're kind of looking for. But I'm just giving it that little bit more down the bottom here, because like I said, I just want to give it that little bit more of a protection against water. Just working into all the knots. And what you've got to do, you're trying to take out any lines. What you're trying to do is pass over it, leaving shades but without any lines where it looks like it's actually been a manufactured kind of look. Everything we're trying to do here is try and give it that natural kind of look of age. And because this is a well seasoned piece of wood, it's really sucking in that stain, as you can see. But at the moment, this is just my baseline here, and I'll give this a few moments just to settle into it. Once I've done the whole one, I'll walk away for 10 minutes and I'll come back and I'll just gently patch a few darker bits in. I'll let that sit and dry in, and I'll put a few more darker bits, but gradually fading them out so that it does have that look of it was the dark colour, but time has taken its toll, and basically sun damaged and weather damaged the actual stain itself. So yeah, I'm coming up to the handle now, and I'm just trying to work those lines out. And any processing marks looks like it's had a little ding or a knock while out on the trail. So it's kind of all adding to like a that look that this has, you know, really served its time on the trail. But you need to try and wipe out any lines, because that's why you're using a rag instead of a brush, because a brush will sometimes with stain just leave those telltale brush strokes, and that gives the game away straight away. We're not trying to deceive anybody. This isn't about trying to say this is a vintage stick. We're not trying to do that. All we're trying to do is give it that retro look of saying, like, you know, this is a vintage styled stick, which some people like. They just like the idea that it's got that very old look about it. Now, I have run out of bags. Or can I salvage one? I might be able to salvage one. I have no intention of getting myself covered in stain. And just working up the handle now. And some of the marks there that I've got are going darker already. As you can see, around the handle here where I've been working, it's gone slightly darker. So I wouldn't put much more stain on there, because I'm not trying to achieve a complete uniformity of coloration, because as we know, you know, anything that's seen time or is old, it's not uniformed. It's got that look of patina and, you know, damage through the actual being out in the environment. So I'm just bringing this down here, just giving the handle just that little bit more there, around there, there. And if I put that there, so what you're getting there is, missed a little bit there, so let me do that, there. There, I've got a baseline colour there, and I'm quite happy with that, but I'm going to just let this dry for like 10 minutes. This wood is well seasoned. It's really hungry wood, so any application I put on it, it's going to soak it in straight away, and it'll be, you know, enough for me to put another layer or work another layer on it within 10 minutes. So I'm just going to let this sink in a moment. So this morning I did a nice, well, solid hiking stick, this one, but this has got a natural dark coloration to the wood, and it's where I've left a lot of the, should we say, Cambrian actually attached to the stick. And as you can see, that is completely natural. But the one I've just done here, you can see, and I'll bring them a bit closer without touching the other one because I've got varnish on that one. You can actually see you're getting a slightly older look about that stick. It's swaying there. It actually looks like already, and I haven't even got a varnish on it or put some darker patches on it, that it's a well-used stick and it's been around the block. So as you can see, around the lanyard and the very top, if I could get around there, you could see I've just applied that little bit more stain there, so it just gives it that darker shadow to it. And as I move down, you'll see the effect that putting it on with a rag you can achieve rather than the brushes. Like there, you can see I've been able to actually put an area that looks like it's been worn by literally just dabbing the rag. There, I've just rubbed it off there, so it's slightly darker around that patch there. And bringing you down to the tip, you can see I've left it a little lighter there, so it looks like it's been worn. But if you go down to the actual ferrule, copper ferrule, you can see where I applied those multiple coats to get it really, shall we say, weatherproofed. But I will have to sand off an area for my logo and to burn, and I think I'll do a fox on this one because it just goes in keeping with the old vintage style. This one has a peaked handle as well. But I will just take this off in a moment and just dab some darker patches on it just to help finish it off. So these three in my outside store, you can quite clearly see the coloration differences. Now, like I was saying, that's our natural collection there, which is like bark, and these are the two that we take back and our generic stock model, which is basically a sanded model. But you can see these two have a differences in shade of colouring of wood, and this is the lightest coloured one, the one with the bird on it. Now I'll just take you in to show you the difference to those ones I've just done in the actual workshop. So if you cast your mind back now, you can quite easily see that there is a different look altogether that we're starting to achieve on this stick compared to the three you've seen out in the stall. This one here that's just been done today. I'm now going to start completing this one. It's been sat long enough for me to get another coat on it now. So I've got my baseline colour on this stick, but from here on in I do not want to touch it with my hands in any way, because what I put on I want to stay on, and I'm looking to actually now give me the effect I want to finish up and let this sit overnight and dry in till I can come back tomorrow, sand off where I'm going to go and do my wood burning. But even then I won't sand all the stain out, I will leave some of it on, and then I'll obviously give it its coats of varnish after cleaning up any bits that may need cleaning up. But so this is where it gets a bit difficult, to be honest with you, because like I said, I don't want stain everywhere all over me. I don't want stain all over my workshop. It's a bit of a should we say, time-consuming process. You know, from the fact of what I'm doing here now, and on top of that, if you end up getting stain everywhere, you know, you've got the clean-up process afterwards. So I've just got all drips off. I'm just going around the handle here, and it's kind of a bit like artwork. You're trying to actually imagine what part of the stick would be the most heavily used. And I've just come down the back here, and I'll just do a bit along the front there. As you can see, I've given the peak that little bit more to make it look darker where the hand would be, sheltering it from some of the actual weather conditions. Coming down the shaft, and what I'm trying to do here is just allow patches to stay on the stick. It's not like you're trying to give it a tie-dye effect, if you can remember that from the 80s, as in, like, you know, when you had that acid effect thrown on a t-shirt. You have to give it something that looks like it's faded in rather than applied in. And this is where your artistic license comes into it, and how good you can get to achieve that. I mean, there's multiple looks you can go for. It's just that this look here that I'm trying to achieve here is one of age. You might be happy with a look that just says, you know, you've done something that you feel has some kind of reference to your artistic ability. But I've got a piece there I've got to get into a knot, and now I've got to work that out. And it's a little bit difficult here holding it up. I would normally do it out here, out in the other workshop with this hanging up. But I'm trying to let you see how gentle I am in bringing these other layers of stain on. Now, when I hang this up, you'll clearly see what I'm talking about. Like I said, it's not all about trying to get it covered in a uniformed colour. So there, I've just hung it up, and you can actually see now how it's starting to come together. I've got a lot more darker parts on that now as it comes down. I've been able to work into it. And bringing down to copper ferro. That's the peak or thumb part of the actual handle there, which I've stained heavier, leading down to the side bits where your hand would be, which would give that indication of wear over time. And as you can see coming down, I've faded in some darker patches all the way down through. And it's already now beginning to look like something that's done time. So at this point, I now have to wait till tomorrow morning and come out and see how it actually looks in the clear light of the day, shall I say, in the morning. Well, it's had its time to dry, and I can assess it. If I do feel it needs a little bit more touching up or a bit more shading, I will do then. But so far as I can see, I will be happy tomorrow morning to come out, and from there come in, decide where my logo is going to be, to slightly sand off some patches to allow my burn to stand out, select the areas avoiding knots and various features within the wood to put my animal, which, like I've said, I've decided it's going to be a fox, my logo, get that burnt on, and then we can get its first baseline coat of varnish on it to start the process of getting it fully sealed. So this has had overnight to actually dry now with that stain, and it's come out just as I've wanted it. I've got darker patches, as you can see, and you know, it has that look of it being quite old already. The only thing is, stain kind of brings it to like a matte finish, and it doesn't really do the wood or the actual coloration much justice in that particular kind of you know, format. Once you get the varnish on it, like a gloss varnish, it will really bring up the whole of the actual coloration of that stick to something that becomes really quite an attractive item. But for me now, I've already decided that I'm going to sand an area around here, just taking that stain back off here to allow my wood burn to stand out. And I'll probably do a little bit down here just for my logo. So I'll do that, then I'll come back and I'll show you where we are with that then. So here's the actual hiking stick now, and I'm just doing the finishing touches to it. You can see I've got my fox burnt on there. It's looking rather nice. And I've got my logo there, Folklore. That'll be upside down to you guys. I don't think it makes a difference how I do it. It's still going to be upside down to you. Yeah, it's going to be upside down. But as you can see, I sanded it off there to allow the wood burn to take. But also what I'm doing now is with a very fine piece of sandpaper, and you can see I've got parts of the stain on this. It's not because it's wet, because what I'm doing is I'm actually now distressing the actual stain. If you remember rightly, we put the stain on and we layered it to allow us to have that distressed look and old look and faded look. What I'm now doing is actually now blending it all in and actually lightening up parts to actually give it that like sun bleached look. So I'm finding patches that I want, darker patches, and as you can see I'm just sanding that back out. It might seem like a lot of effort, and it is a lot of effort. And to be fair and honest with you, it's a lot more effort to do this than what personally I want to put into one particular item. But people do like these sticks, so I do provide the option for people to have like a kind of vintage look-alike retro stick. It's like this one here. I don't want to go too much down here because if you remember rightly, I overstained it down here, and that's because when I put the varnish on, that's just extra protection against water ingress from the tip end. So like I say, I'm just finding bits that I want to sand, and you don't want to do it uniformed. If it's too uniformed, it'll look artificial. So as you can see, overall I'm quite happy with that. That looks like a very old stick there. And from here now I'm going to varnish it. So I've just applied the actual first coat of varnish, and if I run down through the actual stick, you can see now the various colorations give it that look of being old, worn, and you know, sun damaged, age, and indeed that air of, well, like what I'm trying to achieve, a kind of vintage look. The stick is swaying there slightly, but that's only its first coat, and it may need a slight small sand when that's dry, and then I'll come back and give it its top coat. But you can see that's coming out quite nice. And when it's fully complete, we'll get it out in pure daylight. I don't want to take it outside because of like insects and dust. and obviously you're trying to avoid that on a stick that's actually being manufactured. But even at this stage, you can see that look that we're trying to achieve is starting to happen. Right, so another day has passed and that coat of varnish has gone off, and I'm just looking at it, and it's going to have its top coat today. So in effect I've had almost 3 days just drying time, from the stain to the secondary undercoat of varnish to the top coat. But it does need that last top coat just to actually fill in any lumps and bumps and give it that harder shell casing, shall I say, and it smooths out any indiscrepancies of the actual first coat of varnish. But as you can see, if you can, I'm in the woodshed at the moment. It's blaring sunshine here. We have a really nice look to this stick, and yeah, this is exactly what I'm looking for when I'm looking to should we say manufacture one of my vintage or retro styled sticks. The wood burning has come out really well with the Fox, as you can see. That's standing out. You've got the nice patches that I've sanded of that stain to look like it's worn and is sun bleached. And I've got darker patches throughout, so it gives it that hint of what it would have possibly looked like if it was brand new back in the day, although this is a new stick. So yeah, it's looking really nice, but I'm about to give it its next coat, and I'll let you see it then, or the finished item that will be then. And that, like I said, it's quite a drawn out procedure, I grant you that. Like I said, I'm 3 days, like, you know, it will be from the finishing products going on. Obviously I've shaped it, I've sanded it, and on top of that now, and then before that I've straightened it, and I've done the wood burning, put the copper ferrule on, drilled the lanyard hole. Yeah, it's a bit of a drawn out procedure if you sit and think about it in that terms, but the drying times are quick. You apply them and then you walk away and leave it. So this is ready to go out on the stall, and I'll take you for a very quick look right down the whole of this hiking stick. And as you can see, it's got some lovely colours now. There's the Fox. Bring that around, see its nose, you can see the rest of its body there. As I bring it around, bring it back into side profile, and as you come down you can see that stain and the distressed look that we've given it all the way down through, right the way down to the tip. So this is going to go out on my stall, and I'm going to put it out actually now, and yeah, that's been worth the effort to do it, and I think it's got that real vintage kind of look to it, or style, exactly what we were after. So I hope you kind of enjoyed seeing what I did there to get that look that I'm trying to get there, which is, like I've been saying all along, a vintage kind of retro look. I think it works, and the customers that do prefer that and do buy it, they always give a positive comment on it. And you know, I've no doubt that I shall sell that stick in very short time, and you know, I'll be making some more. But as you can see, it is a little bit of a more drawn out process doing that. But you know, it's what you got to do to keep the customers happy and keep them coming to the store. So this is Andy from Folklore Hiking Sticks. I'm going to draw this to a conclusion, and well, happy hiking, and if you're not hiking, happy crafting.